The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan has held a news conference at the end of the NATO summit in Vilnius. The gathering of the military alliance received a boost with the news that Turkey was going to allow Sweden's membership bid. President Erdoğan's approval was warmly greeted by NATO members as Sweden's presence increases the alliance position in the north, while in the east it's put together an action plan to strengthen that flank. The Turkish president says Parliament in Ankara will vote on Sweden's accession in a few months.
Just before the summit, we met with the Secretary-General and the Prime Minister of Sweden. We evaluated the expectations of our country and the current situation of Sweden in terms of fulfilling its commitments to date. We determined the steps to be taken in the coming period regarding Sweden's membership process. Accordingly, we will increase the cooperation in the fight against terrorism through the bilateral security mechanism, which is determined to be established at the ministerial level with Sweden, as well as the permanent three-manner joint mechanism. Sweden will present a roadmap. In addition, Sweden will actively support our country's accession process to the European Union, the customs union agreement process and the visa-free process. The authority that will approve Sweden's accession protocols to NATO is the Parliament, the representative of the national will. Like us, our MPs will follow the process closely.
Well, let's get more details now from TRT World's diplomatic correspondent, Hassan Abdullah, who's in the Lithuanian capital for us. Hassan, good to talk to you. This was a very productive meeting for President Erdoğan and Turkey, was it not?
Yes, it was. President Erdoğan seems to have secured many of the points that he had been chasing over the last few days, especially the days leading up to this summit. One of those was assurances from Sweden that it's going to take the steps that Turkey believes are essential for its national security. Now, Sweden, if you look at that NATO statement, has said that it's not going to provide any assistance to not just the YPG and PYD terrorist organizations, but also FETÖ. If you go back to the bilateral meeting of President Erdoğan and the Swedish Prime Minister that was held in Ankara a few months ago, in that Sweden was reluctant to talk about FETÖ, but now they have said that they will basically not allow FETÖ activities. So that's quite a gain for Ankara. Then, of course, there are other points as well. So, for example, when it comes to any sort of barriers or restrictions on the export of defense products, that's not going to be happening. That's clearly stated in the NATO statement. Also, they've talked about a bilateral mechanism for counter-terrorism, on which both countries are going to be working closely together. And then, of course, there is the agreement that Sweden is going to be pushing hard for Turkey's EU accession process. So quite productive for President Erdoğan. Of course, he's saying that as long as all parties abide by the commitments, it's going to be a win-win situation for all.
And some pretty positive negotiations with the Americans as well. It seems that Congress may now be making noises about reconsidering the supply of F-16 jets to the Turkey Air Force.
You're right. President Biden has said to Turkish President Erdoğan that he's going to be making that push at the Congress, that the F-16 fighter jets, we're looking at around 40 or so, and around 80 modernization kits are provided to Turkey. Now, there's an interesting point that the US has to consider as well. Now that Turkey and Greece are also talking about placing their relations on a positive track, the US is going to be considering the balance of power when it comes to the air capacity of Turkey and Greece, because Greece is looking at obtaining F-35 fighter jets. Turkey has said that if that upsets the air power balance in this neighborhood, then that could be detrimental for peace. So that's another reason for the US to ensure that at least those F-16s are provided to Turkey so that there's some sort of balance of power in this neighborhood. Now, all the signals that Ankara is receiving at the moment suggest that this process could happen sooner than later.
This all puts President Erdoğan and the Turkey government back into a central negotiation, mediation position as far as a lot of the geopolitics is concerned in the region now?
You're right. Well, that has been part of the foreign policy of this government, the government of President Erdoğan. It's been quite assertive. And, President Erdoğan has repeatedly talked about Turkey having its place not just in this region, but also beyond. He has been mediating it in various conflicts. He has been saying that Turkey has a certain place. So if you go as far as Somalia, there is significant Turkish role there as well. So there are quite a few projects that he's working on, and he's saying that this is basically part of the century of Turkey, that Turkey is working towards these. So I think you can really expect Ankara to continue with these policies and to play a mediation role. For example, in the case of Sweden, in the case of Russia and Ukraine, President Erdoğan has said that if the two warring parties want him to mediate when it comes to the end game, then he's willing to do that.